we're obviously very different to the rest of the universe. Um, but we're exceptionally weird and strange.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just gives me like anxiety when I stop and reflect on the world, and I just think like we are so strange. And that same feeling permeates this very podcast, knowing that I've known you for years, and now here we are in a more formal context, recording each other talking about philosophy.
Yeah.
And it's insane, but it's remarkable because I can't think of any other animal that comes just as close, nowhere near as close to this. The fact that we have built computers, the internet, and microphones to talk through that. And you're on the other side of the world to me right now. And
Yeah.
we're using these sounds, highly complex sounds, and there's called a language. It's a system of sounds called a language, and there's over 7,000 of them.
Mm.
And we can convey these extremely philosophical ideas to one another.
I know.
And
It's
I,
bizarre. I
it,
think about this all the time. It makes absolutely no sense. Why is the
it's
division so big between humans and every other animal? Like second place, it's not even close. What is it? Bloody dolphins or something. You know?
dolphins, orcas, chimpanzees, octopuses. I put them in the race.
Yeah.
But the thing is, people do. It's surprisingly controversial. This idea that to say that humans are the most intelligent animal. It's
Mm.
something from a young age. I always found people really combative about this idea and disagreed with it. And I
Yeah.
think about it all the time, and I can't think of a reason against it. I understand intelligence comes in all these different forms, and we're not the best at every type of intelligence. But
No.
if you could measure overall intelligence, we blow everything out of the water, right? I mean, have you found that with people?
Yeah, definitely. I remember, yeah, I remember one example where like, yeah, I jokingly said to a girl once that like animals are like, it's not even close, but it's too easy for humans. We're walking around in this kingdom at this point, full of just like absolutely like nerfed um other is it nerfed or is that the right word?
That's the way. Yeah. Yeah, named after the Nerf gun, which fires foam bullets instead of metal
Yeah,
ones.
yeah. Every other animal has been nerfed at this point. Like, and it's sad like sometimes because you look at a you look at a lion or something and you think like, wow, it's so ferocious and so like it's so beautiful and like it should be the king of the jungle. It should be it's an apex predator, but like we just come in with a little, tranquilizer and like send it to sleep instantly. Like it feels very unnatural, you know? Like, and
Yeah, it's like we've cheated a bit.
yeah, it's like we've found the cheat codes or something.
Mm, yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's a good. I feel like that's a good way of look. It's like almost what religions would call it is like their holy scriptures, whichever one it be, is like God giving us he blesses human life as divine and says like
yeah,
I give you the cheat code. I give you
yeah.
my divinity
Dude,
of
I've
e-
always, I've
consciousness
always
and
wondered.
intelligence.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I've always had this funny thought of like, I wonder how many animals ever think. I mean, yeah, ever have the thought of like fuck are humans like when they like see us walking around, like if
Mm.
they ever just look at us and go like, what the fuck are they doing?
What is that thing? I think this with
Yeah,
dogs because I'm currently living with three dogs at the moment, and they're so funny. And I just wonder, what are they thinking? Like we just leave for like 8 hours a day, and we come
yeah,
back, and we're it's just weird. Like we make up these rules, like you can't go on the couch because like you're smelly and furry and whatever, and
Mm.
they have no concept. They kind of just, I don't know, behind it all. Like what do you think they're even questioning us, or they just fully embrace whatever whatever?
I think they fully embrace everything. I don't think I mean, maybe on some deep level, there's a poor little dog who's been like struck with a bolt of awareness and has seen like the monstrosity which is the human species at this point in history. But I mean,
A
yeah,
cynical
most
point of
animal,
view,
but
of course.
yeah, but I mean, but most animals, it just seems just go about their daily lives with it without any seeming awareness of human exceptionalism, which I find strange. And I think it only goes to show how much more exceptional we seem to appear than them. The fact that there's no even acknowledgement by them of our sort of weirdness. Um, you
Well,
know, the fact
I
that they
think
just
that
look at us and sort of with empty eyes and just keep eating grass. Um,
I think that's a good point actually, because it's like going back to what I said before about is it bias if we're the only ones judging it?
mm,
But then there's almost something to be said about the fact that we are the only ones judging it. We are the only ones capable of creating a judgment of
yeah,
um, what
yeah.
word would you use? Like, not, I wouldn't say value, but like
What do you mean?
uniqueness or specialness.
Of
Um,
our, oh, yeah, of our,
but let's go back to those second place runners, the dolphins, orcas, chimpanzees, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
we
yeah.
keep them in captivity.
Mm,
So they're in they're in a very humanly constructed environment, and I'm sure that they question what what the fuck is this? But
yeah.
they probably don't know what their natural habitat is like. So
Mm.
where sorry, I just got a message and it totally threw my whole train of thought off. Close that. That's how fragile my my idea was. I just had a little ding, and then everything's out the window. Um, so I just wonder with these second place. I don't know if that's a good term to call them, but with these, just say second place animals. Uh, do you think they just like maybe lack the language to convey their intelligence and consciousness? And
Yeah, yeah, I
it,
mean,
so
definitely.
is it a language thing and not maybe a structural thing within the brain that separates us?
Well, that, yeah, definitely. And I feel like the more, I mean, don't quiz me on this specifically, but I feel like constantly there's studies coming out where like the more we learn about these animals, the more we realize how intelligent they are in their own right. Like, of course, compared to our standards of intelligence, they don't really measure up. But like once you start looking at them through their own uh through sort of their own measurements of intelligence, you realize that they have all these skills and all these abilities that are completely just incomparable to the skills that we have. Um, so yeah, I mean, but then again, like in terms of if you're sort of dotting everything up in terms of who, because I mean, ultimately, I think that the measurement for animals is kind of like this power metric of like which animal can like outsmart the other animal, because you know it is an animal kingdom. So
Mm,
in that sense, then yeah, humans have definitely trumped everyone else by a million miles. But
yeah, I think that's a good way of measuring it. Is almost strip it back to the basics
yeah,
of pure ecological dominance.
yeah.
So like humans, for example, prior to the agricultural revolution, as hunter-gatherers, we existed somewhere in the middle of the food chain.
Mm.
We hunted animals, but we were also hunted.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that an animal wouldn't fuck us
Mm.
up in the wild right now, but
Mm.
aggregating our species as a whole, we skipped from mid-tier to S-tier in a very, very short amount of time, in like a few tens of thousands of years, arguably
Mm.
less, a few thousand
Mm.
years. Um, that that has never been seen before, ever.
Yeah.
Just that level of change from a species position in an ecosystem without there being something like a massive meteor or
Yeah.
flood to just destroy an ecosystem and fundamentally change it. We did it in a, people might say there was uh, ice age and all this stuff, but generally, like, the ecosystem was stable enough to make our advance from a mid-tier to top-tier animal incredibly exceptional, right?
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so to me, that's like biological proof we are different and special. Um, I guess I'd be curious, like, to go back then of like why do you think people don't see it? Like that girl you were talking with, and people I've
Yeah.
experienced in their life. There's this like adamant denial of like our specialness. I've got a theory, but I'm curious if you've got
Why do they deny it?
ideas.
Well, I think because there's so much respect for animals at the same time, for their majesty. Like nature is, I th I think it something feels wrong to call animals idiots because, as I said before, the metrics for, our skill sets are completely different. So I think it's important to, yeah. So I mean, I think there's something right in that sentiment to feel a little bit like put off by saying that, yeah, all animals are idiots, like humans just, blow them out of the water. There's no comparison at all. Because animals aren't idiots. Um, it only takes watching like one David Attenborough documentary to be just completely like
Mm,
gobsmacked at like how incredible nature is and how
mm,
intricate it is. Like, okay, maybe not on an individual level, but like as a sort of tapestry or as a network of relations, like how everything just functions, how the whole, how the ecosystem just works. Because that's what's weird about humans at this point in history is that we've become completely separate from every ecosystem. We grow our own food now. We agriculture has just completely like put us out of play. Um, so I think we have no like recognition anymore for how everything is sort
mm,
of meshed together in nature. And if you look at that, like how everything is meshed together in that beautiful sort of tapestry, as I said, then I think it's hard not to go like that is kind of genius in its own way, in
mm,
a holistic sense. Like Mother Nature is the ultimate, um, genius. But then again, we are also part of like Mother Nature. So I mean, yeah, there is that interesting tendency to see humans as separate from nature at this point.
mm.
Um,
And it's like
I
how
mean,
much
yeah,
is bias and how much is objective,
yeah,
right? I
exactly.
mean, you raised a lot of points,
Mm.
and I want to just try and tie it into what I was thinking before. So I was going to bring up that I think there's an inherent trouble with human exceptionalism, and that is to do with the ethics of it. So often when you introduce this idea of superiority, it translates into uh, the the right to dominate over, and I don't think that's always the
Mm,
case.
mm,
So my personal belief is that humans are special and different and almost better on a lot of metrics than other animals. But that doesn't justify destruction of ecosystems and animal life.
Mm.
It almost, to me, says like it puts a greater responsibility onto us.
Yeah.
And I'd like to touch on that more a bit later. But what I was going to say is why I think people struggle to admit, in my eyes, or at least tinker with the thought genuinely that humans are remarkable compared to other animals, is that they don't, like you said, we respect nature so much we feel bad talking down on it. Okay, Jesus. After some technical difficulties, we're back.
We're back.
We're back. Okay. I was on a point and it got interrupted a few times. The point was people struggle to, I think, accept human exceptionalism because they are they're concerned about the idea of viewing humans as uh, uh, what's the word? Morally superior, in the fact that because we are superior intellectually, philosophically, whatever, biologically, that justifies us to, destroy habitats and kill animals for the sake of it. And I personally
Yeah.
don't think that's necessarily the case. But I think that is why people are hesitant to accept human exceptionalism,
Mm.
is that, like you said, we see the majesticness in nature, the beauty of it, and it almost feels to accept human exceptionalism, you have to turn that down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just the other quick point on what you brought about, because you mentioned this good idea of nature and like our connection to it,
Mm.
and this in itself is a very deep question. It's deeper than it appears. Is where, if you imagine this spectrum, this binary of society and nature, it's, at what point does human society bleed into nature? Can we really like define them as opposing things, or
Mm.
is there crossover? Because at some point we were part of the natural ecosystem, and now today I'm sure a lot of people would agree that we're not. We've separated ourselves from it, and like, where is that line? And I just think the fact we've even done this is says something a lot about us as well.
Wait, so what was the question? Why are we, where's the line?
Yeah, where would you?
Well, I mean, I think technically there is no line. Like, you could technically argue that like cities and highways and all human infrastructure is just a quite like sort of bizarre outgrowth of nature, of human nature, and by extension sort of just nature in general. Um, I mean, it's a pretty like, like sort of 12-year-old thought to be like, bro, there's actually like everything is natural. Like even plastic is like a natural material because like
I
it
remember hearing that
technically,
when I was 12.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like,
because it technically comes from nature. Like everything comes from nature.
yeah.
Um,
Okay,
you
I've
know,
got a question. I can reword it. I think we'll get to the point more. Is when you
yeah.
go into the wilderness or to nature, just say you go camping or hiking,
Mm,
do you feel like you are entering a different realm? You kind of go in not as it's like you're almost, at least I have this, and I love being in nature. I'm no stranger to nature, but I still feel like a visitor. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And that to me is
yeah,
interesting. I'm not,
definitely.
it's like I'm visiting something that I don't actually belong to. And part of me
Yeah.
thinks that's a bit sad, but that's the reality, is that that's not our home anymore.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, but I also, I mean, I also, I'm a hiker. I'm a pretty avid hiker. I don't know. I think there's a part of me that definitely thinks like I'm home when I'm going on a hike. Like definitely when I'm sort of huddled around a little fire at night with my
Mm.
little sort of campsite set up.
The
Um,
LED light and
well,
Bluetooth speaker and
that's the issue. You know, I'm
canvas
wearing
tent.
sort of
Yeah,
cotton factory made
Gore-Tex. Yeah.
clothes, yeah, and like yeah,
It,
Gore-Tex boots. But I mean, still, even that all aside, I mean, sure, I'm not wearing a loincloth and a sort of animal skin and whatever, but I think that's all sort of that doesn't matter. I think it's still there for me. There's still, regardless of all that, there's still a sort of primal connection when I'm in nature. I actually find nature to be incredibly like healing and therapeutic. Um, like whenever I'm feeling a little bit like frantic in a city, which is where I spend the most of my time, uh, I always love just driving out into the bush
mm,
and going for a bit of a hike, just going for a day hike,
mm,
or bringing some camping gear and staying overnight.
yeah.
It's incredibly cleansing. Um,
I've found the same. And I wonder, is it cleansing because it's sort of a change of stimulus and you're getting
mm,
away from background noise of cars and people talking
mm,
and maybe less clean air and a lot of concrete visual stimulus, etc. Or is there
mm.
almost something deeper, like some almost spiritual element when you go into nature? It's you feel home.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I mean, I'd like to say there's a spiritual element, but I could also see that the what your point, your earlier point of just it's just a matter of less sound, less people, um, more time
Cleaner
to
air,
think. Yeah, cleaner air,
stillness.
stillness.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's all sorts of weird scientific phenomena that crop up when you put humans in nature.
Hmm.
I know that,
I'd imagine it'd be a mix of both.
yeah. I mean, look, I've taken psychedelics in nature, and there's definitely something different happens when you're on psychedelics in nature versus when you're on psychedelics in a city or just in a house in a like urban environment. Um, and I think that might be a good indication of something else going on. I'm not sure exactly what, but um, yeah. Yeah, so hang
Hmm.
on. How do we link all this back to human exceptionalism? We are we're more part of nature than we think we are. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I guess so. Like we have separated ourselves from nature. Like I think we both
Mm,
agree.
mm,
Um, and so when we go back, it's what is that feeling? Is it coming
mm,
home, or are you visiting something that's not home? I think it's a bit of both. Nature's healing, like in a lot of ways, and I do believe there is a deep level of almost a deep comfort, uh, because when we're in the human world, our purpose in life has to be self-constructed, and so much anxiety comes with that huge like task of constructing the very meaning of your life. When
yeah,
you're in nature, it's boiled down to what you are here to do, and that's just
yeah,
survive. And
yeah,
when you're out of the bullshit of the city and expectations to do this and that and catch up with them and write something or be great or whatever, I've found going into nature, it's all these things feel so stupid, right? They're
mm,
like, what are
yeah,
we doing? Um, because there, like, it goes back to what we were saying. So these human pursuits, which we find so great, like the idea of creating a legacy and being productive and doing a lot with your life and all of that,
Mm,
which, part of me thinks, man, humans are so awesome because we do these things and we
mm,
flew to the fucking moon, for God's sakes. But
mm,
then I go into nature and I get the opposite view. And it's almost
mm.
like, why do we do that to ourselves? We
Yeah,
suffer um,
yeah.
for the praise of other people. All this supposed progress doesn't seem to be going anywhere in the long run. In fact, the more every solution we come up with seems to create two more problems. And so, is it even fair to say we're exceptional? Or rather, maybe the term should be human delusionalism, right?
Yeah. Are we delusional? Um, yeah, but does that mean the answer is
Delusional.
we definitely are doing this
Yeah,
podcast.
absolutely. With
But
no fucking qualification.
yeah, exactly. No prior research, just straight off the dome.
Yeah.
Um, human delusion. Oh, I've just lost my train of thought. Um,
Are we deluded or exceptional?
okay, but does that mean the answer? Does that mean the answer is to go back? I mean, it's funny we're bringing this up actually because I'm currently staying on a farm in Denmark. I'm visiting a friend who owns a farm, and his his philosophy is very much sort of go back to the basics, go back to farming. He said something fascinating the other day, which I really liked, which was all about sort of what humans are doing to the soil, to the soil, and to by extension nature, by sort of modern agricultural techniques and methods, and how we're absolutely just completely depleting it of all its nutrients and arguably doing irreversible damage. That the solution is for 30% of the population to go back to farming. Whereas at the moment, I think it's like less than 2% of the population who are farmers. And honestly, when he said that, I was instantly like yes, like oh my God, yes. Like imagine if 30% of the population went back to farming. I feel like so much of the world's problems would sort of balance out because we have this problem now of just these urbans like this I think cities are becoming dystopian. Um, they're just thronging with people and everyone's becoming so detached from nature and from our, roots. And I mean, just imagine if 30% of the population went back, what that would look like. I think it would really sort of change everything it would change the course of history for humanity. Um, but but it's also sad because I don't see that happening. Like the way we're heading, I think it's almost laughable to think that 30% of the population might go back to farming.
Hmm.
But anyway, I
Yeah.
feel like sorry,
I
that
know.
was a bit of a segue. I feel like that didn't relate much. But
No,
but
no, but
topical
this is
topical for
something
me.
similar I've been thinking about is about this level of human pursuit and like how far do we push it. So
Mm.
I know what you mean. There's something appealing about going back to the basics, just making
Yeah,
food
the noble
for the world,
savage.
right? The
Yeah.
noble savage, right?
No,
Sure.
no, no.
And that
That's the
like
thing. Haven't you heard that?
wasn't
Have you
that
ever heard it? I think it was
yeah, but
Rousseau or something.
not in the I not in the context of farmers.
No, no, no. But like
I
just
I
the general concept of like simple, like we're at our happiest when we're just like stripped of all sort of modern devices. And
right.
we're just out in
Yeah.
nature,
I don't I
not savages, but um, yeah. Anyway, continue.
yeah. Well, like primal. Of course,
Primal,
back
yeah.
in the day, that was
Yeah.
the noble. Oh, well, um, yeah, I think what I was going to say is there's an interesting point of how far do we go in what direction? Because there's a real part of me that wishes we did just go back to living in small communes and we hunted for our food and maybe we had little farms and it was a very small, tight knit network. And I'd almost say get rid of all technology except for medicine, right? Um,
Mm.
part
Mm.
obviously it's idealist, but I wouldn't do it if I could click my fingers. But part of me sees this real beauty and appeal to that. But then
Mm.
another part of me just thinks, fuck it. Let's,
Mm.
you know, try and build wormholes. Let's fly to the moon. Let's fly to Mars. Let's build something on Mars and then let's get
Mm.
out of our solar system and put life on
Yeah.
every planet we can
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just
yeah.
do as much shit as we can. That I that deep inside of me, like I can't reconcile that difference. I am not shared between the two. There's two inherent parts of me that totally disagree, and one goes to each side.
Yeah.
Like there's this drive to just do. We don't even. It's like AI, for example. It's like we don't even care if it is going to have negative outcomes on us. Like we built a nuke, we'll build AI, whatever. Like
Yeah.
we're doing progress for progress' sake, and I think it's goddamn dangerous. But almost, I'm like addicted to it. If I could speak on
Yeah.
behalf of humanity as well, there's an addictive quality to that, and I don't think you find that in any other animal.
No,
And
definitely. I
I've
think
heard
that's a very
theories. I've heard
human trait. Yeah, sorry,
some
go on.
people think. I was just going to say, some people think, including a friend of ours, dad, who I heard this from, is that that parasite that lives in cats, Toxoplasma gondii. This is not solid science, so I'll put that disclaimer there. But
Mm.
this uh, plasmosis, it's sort of when it infects humans, it's known to have neurological effects on the human brain, and
Mm-hmm.
part of that is a uh, reduced anxiety and increased exploratism. So the
Mm.
reason cats have evolved a symbiosis with this parasite is that cats piss it out and the parasite exists in their urine. And the idea is that rats and mice and other rodents get infected by it. And this parasite will make them more explorative and take more risks and have
Mm.
less anxiety. And that's
Mm.
really good for the cats because they want their prey to be less scared and take more risk. So then the
Wow.
cats can eat them. And so it's this feedback loop these cats have developed with this parasite. Now, the idea is that humans are infected with it. I think something like 50, up to 50%, 30 to 50% of the world population has Toxoplasma gondii in their body right now.
Really?
And it's debated, yeah, and it's debated about the exact levels influence it has on the human brain. But
Wow.
there are studies to suggest that it increases the chances of things like schizophrenia, bipolar, and a range of other neurological disorders.
Mm.
But there's also some evidence, tiny, and this is, I need to give an exclamation to this because it's not solid science, but that it does have these same effects in humans, and that things like people who are CEOs tend to have a higher prevalence of Toxoplasma gondii in their, than
Wow.
non-CEOs. And
Wow.
anyway, the theory, and this is very fringe science, I don't actually believe it, I just think it's more fun to think about, is that
Mm.
the introduction of this parasite fundamentally changed our brains to just explore. If
Mm.
we rewind the clock back to human evolution, we, all human species came from Africa. Now, we are just, every human alive is a Homo sapien, and that's just one human species. But there were humans way before our species, Homo erectus most notably, that traveled the world. They started in Africa and they left and they literally just walked all around the world. I don't think they got to the Americas, but they
Mm.
just went everywhere, right? And then Neanderthals, Denisovans, all these human species that popped up before us, they did the same thing. And then we arrived and did the same thing. There's something in our genetics that makes us just want to go everywhere. Like, you know, our species in particular, Homo sapiens, were the first to get to the Americas, all these islands to Australia, right? There was something where we got to a body of water that was hundreds of kilometers across, and we said, fuck it. What's
Mm,
on the other side? That
mm,
is only a human thing. And that to me is so amazing that we,
mm.
and this fact like inspires me so much, and I think is our most beautiful quality, is that we do things, we're curious for curiosity's sake.
Yeah.
You know, when people, of all the humans that got to a big body of water and said, let's sail it, let's get on a shitty little boat that we'll make out of
Mm,
wood and just go, you know, most of them probably died, but some of
yeah.
them reached the shores of Australia. Some of
Mm,
them reached the shores of, well, they walked to the Americas, but islands, you know, New Zealand, like all these sorts of places, Madagascar, we just did it, you know, we just took that leap for the sake of it. You know,
yeah.
if we
That was
saw
a
a
beautiful.
cat that just got to water and just decided, I'm going to swim as far as I can in hopes that I will find a land that might not even be better than where I am now. And it's not like
Yeah.
here's overpopulated. I'm just doing it for the sake of it. That's
Yeah.
delusional, but it's
Yeah.
exceptional, I think. Yeah.
Wow. That was a beautiful pep
Rant
talk
over.
to,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
no,
get up
it's,
and fix your
yeah,
life, you piece of
what am
shit.
I, what am I doing?
What are you
Um,
doing
well,
with
no, but
yourself?
I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason I'm traveling right now is kind of to scratch that itch. Um, I mean, even though traveling is very like sort of safe and controlled, and there isn't that element of risk involved so much. I think it definitely appeals to that side of your brain which constantly wants to seek out new places and explore and discover. Um, yeah, I mean, and to go even further, like when I'm a tourist, I hate the feeling of like being surrounded by other tourists and like we're all looking at the same thing because I feel
Mm,
like, oh, like I'm not discovering anything. Like this has all been like already well, I'm not the first here. Like versus when I sort of go off the beaten path a bit and like go into a smaller town and then I find something like really beautiful and I'm the only person there or maybe with a few other people, then that really like gives me the thrill of and kind of that's kind of the feeling that I'm always chasing when I travel is that thrill of the unexplored and the undiscovered. Um, so yeah, it is a beautiful characteristic, and I think it's definitely a reason, if not the biggest reason behind why we've done what we've done. It's that constant need to know for no apparent reason, but for simply just knowing. And I mean, that's how modern science was built, and that's how, all these new technologies have come about, is just through simply asking the question of why. Yeah, but why does that happen? Okay, let's go out and test it. Let's
mm,
figure out why that happens. And
mm,
that's a really, yeah, maybe delusional quality, but yeah, also incredibly exceptional quality.
mm.
Um,
Yeah. And look, some people, you know, is there an evolutionary purpose to having this almost absurd level of curiosity?
mm,
That's how I describe it. Curiosity is not always a good thing, or just say
mm,
intelligence. We're highly intelligent and we're highly curious. Like we want to know things even to our own detriment. You know, if
mm.
someone had on their phone like a video of Charlie Kirk's assassination, I'd be like, no, 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 I don't want to look. And then I'd be like, I kind of want to watch it. Why do I want to watch this
Mm.
thing that I know
Yeah.
is just going to be like so, like it's just a guy getting murdered? Like that's awful. Yet my curiosity appears to be stronger than my own well-being. And I know this. I've
Mm,
seen a video of a guy getting eaten by a shark in,
mm,
the one off Malabar in Sydney. I watched that out of curiosity. What this level of curiosity and intelligence, some people might argue, is evidence of almost, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it, a divine spark in us
yeah.
humans. Because maybe it
Oh,
goes to
he said it.
the explanation of evolution. Now, pause before anyone misquotes me here. I'm a
Mm,
big evolutionary person. I
mm,
studied evolution at university, and I'm not saying this is the case. I'm just proposing what some people will argue, and maybe I can play the devil's advocate. But
yeah.
you know, it really feels like this, like this level of like conscious awareness we have, just feels so undescribable. Is it a fluke? Does it actually have some purpose um
But what would the
behind
purpose
our
be? Like,
actions?
are we like we're like saviors, like sent to we're like sort of angels sent to do what? Save? I mean, I feel like the world was pretty good before. Like we're kind of like the source of most of the problems in the world at this point. Like
Hmm,
I don't see us really
totally.
being
I think what
filling that
like,
sort of role.
well, I think what
If we
some
are descended
religions
from
may
a
say,
divine source. That is.
but I'd say what some religions may say is that it's a test. Life is a test, and it's
Mm,
how moral you live that life, what you do. Do you devote yourself to good? Do you devote yourself to fame? Do you devote yourself to money or evil or desire? You know, it's like, uh, is that
mm,
the purpose of life? Is it's secretly a test? And maybe thousands of years ago, God was like, "Psst, it's all a test. And I'm telling you now, and I'm never going to tell you again. So
mm.
just take my word for it." Probably not. But it's fun to think about it. And I even think that as an like atheist agnostic, these ideas still inform my life, about, you know, there's still a part of me that really thinks when I die, I'm going to wake up from something and they're going to be like, well, fuck, I can't
Yeah,
even say it with a straight face, but just like,
yeah.
well done, mate. Like, you
You
passed something. It
oh,
just,
oh you
you failed.
you failed, you idiot.
Yeah.
Why did
Or
you
you just
watch
wake
so
up
much
from,
porn?
you fucking, yeah.
Um,
And YouTube and TikTok and,
yeah, yeah. No, no.
well, look, here's how I can tie this into what we've been talking about, and a bit of a counter argument is that there is definitely an element to like the human spirit, I'm going to call it, literally or metaphorically speaking, that feels so different to other animals. Um, we're almost so inclined to say that we have a soul. And here's my problem with the soul. And I don't want to believe it, but it is a big problem I can't deal with. Is that evolutionarily speaking, all species come about continuously, right? Because every species is the same, every organism is the same species as their parents and as the same species as their children. But if you
mm,
go back far enough, those changes build up and that it's a different species and they branch
mm,
off, right? So what
mm.
separates us from chimps, but even us from trees and flies and bacteria, all these completely different living organisms, is not discreteness, but continuity if you go back in time. So
Yeah,
if we, it to say like we have a soul, it either means all of them have souls or that at some point we were, boom, given a soul,
yeah,
or that a soul evolves based on genetics, which just feels the weirdest of, to say.
yeah,
Is that like your soul grows as you become more genetically advanced or intelligent or
yeah.
whatever. Um, and this is my problem with the soul and the concept of it is that it
Uh,
implies that it either existed all along or there was a moment where we were given that spark of the soul, which a lot of religious people would argue is the case. above.
No, yeah, I think
Who knows?
that's a great philosophical argument. Um, I mean, should we talk about consciousness? Because
Mm,
I think I think that idea might fit better in with that idea of the slow, continuous development of a soul. Um, because I think if you subscribe to the idea of panpsychism, which is the idea that everything has a soul, if you will, or rather consciousness. Everything is conscious, even inanimate objects, trees, uh, a, a rock. Um, then I think it's much easier to see why humans simply exhibit or instantiate a higher level of consciousness due to whatever neural complexity. So it's not a matter of humans having a soul and animals not having a soul. It's more a matter of humans being more having having more sort of a higher dose of consciousness and animals having maybe also a higher dose of consciousness, but I would say a lesser dose of consciousness. Um, I really like that idea. Uh,
mm.
but that doesn't really, I mean, that doesn't do much work in explaining why. I mean, I've just said neural complexity is why we have, a higher level of consciousness, but I don't know. I
Well, I
couldn't I
guess the
couldn't tell you why.
explanation would be how I've sort of always intuitively understood panpsychism is it's not that things are conscious, but this is going to get deep, and we're
Mm,
getting into realms where I don't believe in anything with 100% certainty, but this is just
mm,
a thinking is that there is only one consciousness and it permeates everything around us. And you can think of it as like the conscious field, similar to how there is the electromagnetic field, right? That exists everywhere at all times. But what we see as an electromagnetic wave is just an excitation in the field or
mm,
right? So it's the field is everywhere, but there's only specific spots where it gets excited and there's energy in the field condensed in an area that we call that a photon, right? Or a
mm.
wave of light, whatever. So maybe that exists, consciousness is similar, and that brains or nervous systems, maybe is a better term, has figured out how to tap into the conscious field. Um,
Yeah,
I think that provides like a better explanation as to how something physical can interact with something like consciousness, which may not be physical, or it might be. Um,
yeah,
but then the trouble, well, not the trouble, the beauty of that is that there is only one consciousness and that we are sort of
yeah.
subdivisions of the one.
Yeah, I like that idea. I'm pretty partial to the idea of a larger unity. I I like Alan Watts, one could say. You
One
know
would
Alan
say,
Watts, don't you?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think there's something very beautiful in the idea. And because we don't know the true nature of consciousness, we can sort of play with ideas like this. Um, to tie it back into animal exception or human exceptionalism is you could say that like the strength of the conscious field that exists within the human nervous system is greater than that of other animals.
yeah.
But
But is that
I
it
would
then?
also
Is it
argue
just is it
surprisingly
just
not as much. Well, mm, it's
is it
tricky.
just a
I would
matter
argue
of
not. I would say we're surprisingly not as Mm.
Sorry, no, no, go on, go on.
I was going to say, I would say our level of consciousness, I don't think is actually that different to a dolphin's. I would
Mm.
say we're more conscious than a dolphin, but I wouldn't say we blow them out of the park with our level of consciousness. But I do think our brains blow them out the park because of language, maybe. Like, language is totally
Well,
reshaping our whole like understanding and
well, that's the
perspective
yeah,
of
and
the universe.
language is the only reason that we know consciousness exists. Like consciousness is not a measurable thing. It's kind of just a matter
Mm.
of trust that like okay, I see someone who is of the same species of me and sort of interacts with the world in a similar way to I do. I assume that they have similar thoughts and similar feelings because consciousness is all about feeling. Um, I assume that they have the same feelings as me because I'm able to sort of interact with them linguistically and talk about those feelings. But with animals, I don't know. I don't know how we would ever be able to tell whether they're conscious, uh, because we don't obviously we don't
Mm.
have that ability to talk to them unless we invent some sort of technology in the future, which would be crazy if we could.
Yeah, some like neural cap.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that
It
doesn't
would
even
be,
seem too
but I mean, oh
far-fetched
god.
at this point.
Um,
That's speaking to you, Zach.
but the problem is their brain designed to
The
even
dogs.
communicate such ideas? So it's just say take a dolphin who might be almost as conscious as us and highly intelligent, maybe
Mm,
as intelligent, but it lacks the ability to communicate not just with others but almost itself in a way. And what I mean
mm,
by that is that we think in language. Not everyone
yeah.
does, by the way, but I do and
Mm,
most people do. Is your thoughts occur in language. And so maybe language maybe language is kind of behind it all. It's the
mm,
that old saying people won't say anymore, but like um behind every great man is a woman.
mm,
Maybe it's actually behind like consciousness is language and we kind of
mm,
forget to give it credit. But maybe like our true exceptionality is our language. Because it not only allows us to communicate with others, but also ourselves. And through language, we construct this complex, rich inner world that when we look at the beauty of the human mind, maybe that is what we're looking at, not our intelligence or our consciousness, even though that plays a part, but it's that richness invoked by language that allows us to ponder and talk about abstract things that don't even exist in physical reality. That's
and
something we haven't seen another animal do.
yeah. Also, on a more practical level, I think it's a good point to say that language has allowed us to sort of record ourselves and pass on information. It's allowed culture to sort of extend beyond the lives of the people who might have sort of invented it, even though, it's not that one person invents a culture, but it allows it sort of creates the connective tissue which from which like the lineage of information that gets passed across generations
Mm.
rides on, you know. Um and that's invaluable. I mean, what the hell
Oh,
would
wait,
we
and
be if we didn't grow up with going to school and reading books? And I mean that's where like I would say 90% of our sort of cognitive abilities come from is learned knowledge that's been passed down through us to us through language.
mm, mm. Yeah, and
Um,
and that's
so it's a
also
huge
brings up another
advantage.
interesting theory of consciousness. Is that oh, sorry, I think the reception's a bit. Um, I was just going to say,
Shit.
but that brings up another interesting theory of consciousness, is that consciousness arises when you have a lot of highly complex, sophisticated, but choreographed uh, sharing of information. It's like an information system. Now, by this definition, it mean that AI could also become conscious, but I don't want to talk about that now. Um,
Mm,
but what that brings up is that so our brain becomes conscious because our neurons are very densely packed, I believe more densely packed than any other animal, and can fire messages, and these are just little simple messages, just on or off between each other, billions of times a second in a choreographed, complex way to simulate
mm,
consciousness.
mm,
Now, what the beauty of language does is expands our consciousness from beyond us, because now information exchange doesn't just occur within our brains, it occurs between brains and between groups
mm,
of brains and between groups of brains. And so now it's like, Jung's concept of, the collective consciousness is that if you believe that consciousness arises when you have a highly orchestrated, choreographed, complex exchange of information happening within a set system, then that should apply to the human population as in large, because we ourselves are exchanging information in a similar complex manner. Um, and I think this ties into like another point of what makes us exceptional is our social ability. So on this point, right? Like I think this collective consciousness is something we actually as individuals identify with, and that makes us more exceptional, I guess. But also, um, totally forgot my train of thought. um,
No.
I was just like had it, and then I was just like, what was I talking about again? Um,
No, you were,
yeah,
dude, you were,
totally forgotten it.
you're
I,
spitting, you're spitting
but just the
bars.
point about like it's the fact that I remember we our ability to socialize in groups, and this is another big point I wanted to bring up about human exceptionalism, is that
Mm,
we're the only known animal to rebel against our own DNA, right? Like,
yes.
think about this. Ants live in big colonies, big colonies, and every ant has a role that they play towards the colony. There has never been an ant that has rebelled against the colony.
Mm,
Why? Well, it's in their DNA to just do it, right? What's in human DNA does guide our behaviors, but it doesn't dictate them. And that to me is remarkable, that
mm,
we have
mm,
urges, primal urges that we can hold back on, resist on, because what's stronger than our genetics is the stories we tell ourselves. And that, to me, is remarkably exceptional, because it means that the rule book that we are playing by is not a
yeah,
physical thing like DNA. It
yeah.
it's abstract. It doesn't exist anywhere physically written down, and as a result, it is limitless. And to me, that
Mm.
is another, to add to the list, another point of why I think humans are so exceptional.
But maybe it is written in our DNA, but we just sort of it's a bit we haven't found it yet, or I don't know. Could it be that where we are playing by the rule book, it's just very much very a lot more complex than an ant's rule book.
So
So the rule book accounts for rebels and entrepreneurs and
hang on,
all the sort of
I can't hear you.
weird. Oh, really?
Well, maybe we can wrap this up. I've
Yeah,
got
let's wrap it up.
a point I want to finish on.
Yeah.
It's called, yeah, I think the signs are saying, um, it's this old English concept about the fact that, in industrial times or prior, right, for English feudalism, there are like lords and kings and people who just had life a lot better than the peasants. And humans, while people might lack empathy for these people, they did have an emotional understanding that they lived a better life than most people. And I heard of this saying that used to go around, high English society. It had a Latin name and I can't remember the words, but it pretty much says, for those for whom so much has been given, even more is expected for them to give.
Mm.
And so I think I love that phrase because it sort of it gives privilege that some people might have over others, like a lot of context and meaning of like, okay, you are privileged and luckier than some people, but that means that you have to give back even more than the privilege you were born with. But now I think this applies to humans. I really do think humans are so exceptional and special compared to other animals, but this does not justify a betterness that we don't have to have regard or empathy or, for other animals and life forms for that matter. I think it's the opposite. I think the fact that we are so special and intelligent and rich in the mind and society puts extra responsibility on the fact that we need to give back in that way. Anyway, do you have any final
Jesus.
points?
Final points. Human exceptionalism. Yeah, look, we're pretty good, but AI is going to be better than us soon. So I think we're in for a little surprise in the next 50
I
years.
don't think that.
You what? You don't think AI is gonna outsmart us?
No, no. I think AI
Oh
will
shit.
be subservient to humans, at least for a long time.
Okay, interesting. I mean,
I don't even like the
okay,
word
this
subservient because it implies that they are like an agent of their own. Like it's a tool. AI is a
yeah,
tool, and I think we'll continue to use it. I'm more concerned about bad actors. I'm more concerned about AI in the hands of bad humans rather than AI going bad. That I
interesting.
think is a much bigger threat.
Okay, but I'm not saying it does it, I'm not saying it's going to be a threat in the sense of like, you know, spelling the end of humanity or whatever, or sorry, as in like an existential threat. I mean more just it's threatening our position as sort of top dogs in terms of, intelligence. Isn't that that's kind of
Right.
indisputable at this point, isn't it? That AI is going to outsmart us at some point, if not very
But I don't
soon, in
think
the next
AI
two
has.
years.
I don't think AI. Sorry, this is so fucked. I literally anyway. I was just gonna say I don't think AI has that. So AI you can imagine as like it's coded, okay, and it's more than just single lines of code. It's incredible how it operates.
Yeah,
But as I was saying before, humans go beyond what our DNA and our genetic code instructs us to do. It informs us, and I think there's something in our genetic code that says to think beyond it. I don't think
mm,
AI has that, and I think whenever or if ever AI gets that, it will be it will have to be in such a different manner to how it is currently constructed. I think it's remarkable and it can appear to be truly intelligent and conscious, but I don't think it has the ability to go beyond the data that it has been given. And there's a good example of this is I saw this in an Alex O'Connor video. I thought it was amazing. He asked ChatGPT, give me an image of a glass of wine filled to the brim. And it gave him an image of a glass of wine half filled, as a normal glass of wine is. And he was like, no, fill it up to the very top of the glass. And ChatGPT was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, let me do that now. And it filled
mm,
up the glass. It gave him an image, and again, it was just filled halfway. And he's
mm,
like, fill it up so the wine, the liquid inside of it, is at the very, very brim, so that if you put any more wine into it, it would spill over. And ChatGPT
mm,
is like, oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, I'll do that now. And it made another image of a glass of wine just filled normal. And he put all these variations to try and explain, just to give him a glass of wine filled to the brim, and it couldn't. And the reason why is that people don't typically fill glasses of wine up to the very top. They'll fill them
mm,
about, a third to halfway full. And all of the data that ChatGPT had been given and in its system is just of normally filled glasses of wine. Now, the thing is, I would imagine, and a lot of people would, that true intelligence would be able to extrapolate what a glass of wine filled to the top would look like, even though it is beyond its data set.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but yeah, you're
and it
right.
can't
But
do
I
that.
mean,
It can't. It
well,
can't.
it can't do it
It can't create
now.
a vision of something that it hasn't been coded.
But it's
Yeah.
yeah, but
Well,
it's
I think
learning.
maybe
It's anyway. Yeah, okay. This is good for another episode. We should
this
have
can be
an
next
episode
week's.
on it on
Yeah,
AI. Anyway,
I know.
okay.
It
I
just
gotta
feels
wrap
too
up
big.
quickly.
Yeah.